Hi there, everyone. This is Empowering Democracy. I'm your host, Joe Firestone. Our topic for tonight is dump the corruption and change the system. I suppose it might have been the only way to change the system is to dump the corruption. But I think that's a little premature because I want to introduce some background first. At least a little bit of background first. We are now 5 months away, actually 1 day less from 5 months away, from the first of the primaries in Iowa, which will occur on January 15th. I don't remember whether that's now a primary. I think they did shift to a primary and won't have a caucus this year. But anyway, the first contest of the primary season will go on, in Iowa as planned, even though the Democratic Party won't count the results of that primary in some kind of official sense, because the Democratic Party wanted the first primary to be in South Carolina, where Joe Biden was far more likely to have the advantage than in Iowa, or New Hampshire. The first step in actually rigging the outcome is the step that they tried there. Of course, other people who are contestants, who are contesting the nomination of the Democratic Party, have gone to Iowa, have gone to the Iowa State Fair, and are acting just as they would always do in an Iowa primary. So we noticed that Robert Kennedy was there making speeches just a few days ago, and other candidates are there as well. I think Republican candidates are there making their case. But my point in saying that we're only 5 months away is that there are no changes being made in this system. The system has delivered us very bad choices for years and years, and years. In recent years, we had a choice of Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I don't think the majority of either party wanted such a choice, wanted the two of them to be the nominees. Nevertheless, they were. And the rest of us were stuck, with that. We got stuck again in 2020. Hi, Steve Wolfbrandt. How you doing? They got stuck again in 2020. Hi, Kay. Where, of course, our choices were Donald Trump and Joe Biden. No choice at all for those of us who cared about any kind of decent choice of candidate. The nomination process in both parties is failing to deliver for us. There is no movement out there to try to change this, in any way. We have the evidence that the primaries were rigged against Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020. Those of us who observe the situation now are pretty well convinced that in 2024, the primaries will again be rigged for Joe Biden. We may wonder why Robert Kennedy and Marianne Williamson are running, at all. The way the campaign finance system works, in our country, and the way the election rules work, we may wonder why Cornel West is running at all as a Green Party candidate, because we know that he's going to be swamped, is being swamped right now by very big money going to the major party candidates. So far, in the early stages of things, he is getting his message out because it's early stages. And the MSM have not completely shut down Cornel yet, because it's not really the season yet. But don't worry, when the season comes, they are going to shut him down. He's not going to have any oxygen. I have no idea what he's going to do to get any oxygen. With respect to RFK, he's running at least a little bit as a progressive candidate, and Marianne Williamson has running as a progressive candidate. I don't remember whether they are the only two candidates who are running against Joe Biden in the Democratic Party, but I have the impression that that is the case right now. There are a whole host of candidates who have declared already in the Republican Party, but there are only a few of them who have yet started to criticize Donald Trump, because they're all deathly afraid of him. But from the standpoint of those who are looking for a progressive candidate, or who are looking for a candidate who is not taking big money, the only person we have to turn to right now is possibly Cornel West. I haven't been able to see his numbers yet, his fundraising numbers, So I don't know whether he has taken any big money. But as I covered a few shows back here, it certainly is true that Bobby Kennedy is very aggressively looking for big money right now, and he has already taken some. And I think Marianne Williamson has taken a bit, okay, of big money too. So if we're looking for a candidate, okay, who's unbought, we have a problem. Also, we already see that in Marianne Williamson's case, she claims to be a progressive, but she's not conducting herself like an anti-war candidate. When it comes to anti-war credentials, she was pretty much blown out of the water a few days ago by Jimmy Dore. And it was easy. It was easy for him to blow her out of the water. She had not thought through her position on the war in Ukraine. She hasn't really thought through her position on Israel-Palestine either. I don't think she's thought through what kind of policy, foreign policy, she would have as president of the United States. She tries not to say. For me, that makes her unfit to be the president of the United States. And then there's Bobby Kennedy. He's already made it clear that he has a position on Medicare for all, which is not acceptable. His position seems to be, well, I would love it if we could have it, but it's too heavy a lift for me and I'm not going to fight for it. At least I'm not going to fight for it when I get into office. I might do something with a public option, but I'm not sure about the details of that. So it seems like he hasn't defined a position with respect to the public option. He says, well, what I'm going to do is try to cut down on the chronic diseases here in the United States. I'm going to save a lot of money when it comes to healthcare spending. And I know that we spent in 2022 $4.3 trillion on healthcare, far more as a percent of GDP than any other nation. I know that. I know we've got to do something about it, but I'm going to do something about it by cutting back on chronic diseases. Now, he's not real clear on how he's going to do that. He's not real clear on how he's going to do that for those who don't have any health insurance. He's not real clear on why you can't do Medicare for all and chronic diseases at once. His position on fundraising is, well, I can't go to a gunfight with a knife. So I'm going to have to take all the money I can get. He seems to be willing to take money from anybody. He seems to think that if he takes money from anybody, that we won't think that he's a bought candidate representing his donors, okay, and not us. And this his position, okay, on Israel, which is absolutely ridiculous and getting debunked all over the web as we speak. I just completed the Around the World with Dee and Friends show where we read and commented on Chris Hedges' wonderful piece critiquing Bobby Kennedy's position, okay, on Israel. It was a masterful job. The other day, we did the same, that is a critique on Bobby Kennedy, using a letter by Nico Peled, the Israeli general's son. His letter, his open letter to Robert Kennedy, was devastating. So with Robert Kennedy, you just have to say, if you recognize that his position on Israel, okay, is ridiculous and must be dishonest in some way. If you think he's a decent candidate, well, certainly it's very hard to conclude that he's a progressive candidate with the kinds of views he has, okay, on Israel, with the kinds of views he has on fundraising, with the kinds of views he has, okay, on Medicare for all. But the position you have to take if you want to support him is, well, there are more important issues that is so existential and so much more important that we just cannot reject the candidate because he has a terrible position, okay, on Israel, because he gives us some hope when it comes to ending the war, okay, in Ukraine, and when he gives us some hope when it comes to the climate emergency. But by the way, he's never stated a clear position on the climate emergency, has he? He spent his whole career working on, okay, environmental issues, so we assume he's strong when it comes to climate. But we really haven't heard any statements from him on that, have we? So where are we with, okay, our candidates? We are still living inside a system. Oh, Steve Wolfbrand points out, I love RFK's views on the deep state. Yeah, I love his views on the deep state too. I love his views on the MIC and Big Pharma. And not just Big Pharma, but on regulation in general. I love his views on corporate America and getting corporate America in line. He is good on quite a number of issues, which are important issues. But since he caved on the Israeli issue, it is hard to credit the idea that he is a person, okay, of principle. Steve Wolfbrand says, where are we with our candidates? Screwed, basically. And Steve's absolutely right. We are screwed, basically, because inside the Democratic Party, we have a long shot candidate with some serious problems, okay, in his views, who might be viable against Joe Biden. But meanwhile, Joe Biden has got the full support of the party apparatus, the full support of the mainstream press, certainly against other candidates that are running within the Democratic Party, okay, against him. I won't say he has the full support of the mainstream press when it comes to a comparison to the Republican candidates, because, of course, the mainstream press, okay, is currently quite clear that there's a big issue of age and capability with respect to Joe Biden. They seem to be talking about that. But it's not so much the candidates that we're stuck with. What we are stuck with, okay, is this political system where there is so much money sloshing around that it is impossible for third party candidates such as Cornel West to expect to be able to fight the candidates with the big money. So we're left with the possibility of Bobby Kennedy. It would certainly be, an improvement over Joe Biden. And I dare say would be an improvement over Donald Trump as well. By the way, I like Bobby Kennedy's views on censorship also. I think they're essential. His views on censorship are essential to our democracy. There's no question about that. There are so many areas, okay, in which Bobby Kennedy, okay, is strong. But he's he's also running against the corruption. He's running against the corruption while taking the money. And here is Dee Piers, who is the host of Around the World with Friends. And
Good
she
evening.
and I just got through with the critique, okay, of Bobby Kennedy by Chris Hedges, which we read and commented on. Yeah, I think it's a striking show, and I think you should go over and take the video on because Chris Hedges really did a terrific job. Okay, on that.
Yes, he did. And especially since we've covered a lot of the stuff on my show throughout this past year, we've covered a lot of this information. So it was very familiar what he talked about.
It was very familiar, but it was very eloquently stated, okay, and economically stated. Chris is
Yes.
just a master, okay, of journalism, and he's a master of morals also.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he was very good. It was
Yeah,
summarizing so much. It was good in the word usage.
but let's say we wanted to have Chris Hedges run for the president, okay, for the presidency.
Oh my goodness, the Israeli lobby would have a fit. All the
They
money would
would
be
have
out
a
there.
fit. All the corporations would have a fit. The military industrial complex would have a fit. The mainstream media would have a fit. And they would see to it that he never got a word out edgewise. We would have to rely on his own Substack. Uh, it would just be impossible for someone like him to run it would be impossible for us to get a choice, okay,
Mm-hmm.
of someone like him. Okay, and by the way, there are a whole host, okay, of decent Americans who are moral people, who are honorable people, who are strong people, who would make very desirable candidates for president, that have no chance and know they have no chance and would not even try to run because they don't have any money and they don't have any built in kinds of advantages. In Bobby's case, of course, he has the advantage of the Kennedy name, which at least gives people a certain familiarity with what to expect, especially since he's trying to run a campaign that harkens back to his uncle and his father. Uh, Steve Wolfbrand says, I think Cornell will do better than most people think he will. I just wish he would stop the brother sister jive talking. He should let Jimmy Dore, okay, advise him. Yeah, okay, I'll tell you the truth. Uh, okay, I've always wished he would stop the brother sister jive talking. Okay, I think that's a little over the top. And when you listen to him, you have to get used to his doing the brother sister jive talking before you realize that his positions, okay, are very good and that he's very strong, okay, as a candidate, from the intelligence point of view and from the policy point of view. Okay, but here's my main message for tonight. We are in this fix because we have this corrupt system. Okay, Doc, what do you think of Dr. Shiver running, even though he's not native born? I like the policies very much. I didn't notice that Dr. Shiver had declared. Has he declared as a Democrat or a Republican? Okay, but anyway, my main message for tonight is simply this. We are still stuck with the same system we were stuck with in 2020 and 2022, okay, and earlier. Nothing has fundamentally changed about this political system. So people who are unhappy with the political system haven't been able to make any changes to it. And we're still not trying to make any changes to it. We're looking at the candidates who declared, we're debating about them, we're looking at their strengths, okay, and weaknesses, but we're not doing anything about the system they are running within. We're pretty unsatisfied with the candidates we have so far, at least on the Democratic side. I think we're very dissatisfied with the candidates we have on the Republican side. We don't seem to have anybody who's even halfway reasonable. But what can we do about it? We have to take the choices the donors give us because they're the ones who are going to have the money to get their message out and their message is going to be controlled and trimmed and shaped by what the donors want to hear. If we don't change this system, change it substantially during the coming months, certainly during the 5 months before we reach the primaries, and then in the months following that, if we don't change that system, we're going to get Donald Trump versus Joe Biden again, with Cornel West being drowned out by the big money and not having any chance to win. I agree with you, Steve. He will do better than most people think. But what if he even gets 10% of the vote? It's still going to be basically Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. And we'll be stuck with them, with that horrible choice once again. With the lousy performance of Joe Biden in very key areas like the foreign policy area, I think especially the foreign policy area, but also with respect to things like healthcare, eliminating student debt, only token advances in the climate emergency area and the infrastructure area. Uh, Looking at Joe Biden's record and the risk and the fact that he has subjected us once again to the risk of a nuclear war and is running a foreign policy in the rest of the world, that is ridiculous. He seems to be on the path to a war with China. He's getting in back of an intervention in Africa. His people are evidently planning to do things in Latin America because they don't like the fact that people down there are making deals with China.
Well, I know the Democratic Party itself, it seems that they want to replace Biden. They're looking for someone, and they're going to be somebody that's a tool, just like he's a tool. So nothing will fundamentally change. I would hope that the Green Party, like, that would be enough people where it'd be three-way and the Green Party could get in. That would be a very big hope of mine.
That would be a big hope of mine too, but we don't need hope, we need a plan. We ourselves have to begin to make things happen.
Right, and I think by these shows, we're trying and trying and trying.
Okay, Steve points out that crime is going through the roof here in Los Angeles. We are seeing it with our own eyes. So crime
And
is a
we see
problem.
videos of the homelessness there
Yeah,
too, people sleeping on the streets.
yeah, that's incredible. That's really incredible. Biden, of course. Uh, well, okay, I don't think he's able to do anything about it. Okay, even if he were to try, because of course the whole Congress is corrupt. In other words, we are dealing with that system that we have to change. And there's still no dump the corruption movement, to speak of. If we don't get going, if we don't get one going during the next, what is it, maybe 10, 11 months, we're going to be stuck with a choice between Biden, Trump, and Cornel West. With Cornel West, let's be completely honest, not having much chance because he will be flooded with all kinds of ads from the other two parties, and he won't have any oxygen. There's no way that he can get oxygen. Okay? But once again, this is not really about the people. This is about the system. We have got to get free of this system. And we don't have a movement that is working on it. Meanwhile, the clock is running down when it comes to the climate emergency. We all see it. We all feel it. Okay, this summer, the weather is ridiculous. It will be worse next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. And we may have only a few years to begin to turn things around, to do something serious. And we have this political system which won't do anything except what the donors want it to do. So the question I'm raising tonight is, why can't we start this Dump the Corruption campaign so that it becomes a factor? If we can get people who would be voting against all those who are taking big money in their campaigns, we could get rid of Biden. We could get rid of Trump. We could get rid of any people they try to put in Biden's place. We could get rid of all the horrible Congress people we have. We could get rid of 1/3 of the horrible senators that we have. We could get rid of horrible people on the state and local levels. Why don't people take seriously the idea of a movement to vote against the big money and get it out of politics? Why are they spending their time dwelling on these candidates when they could have whole new slates of candidates not bought by big money? We could change the whole environment of politics. We desperately need to do that. You all know we desperately need to do that. So why is the first priority to report on the things Bobby Kennedy is doing, or Joe Biden is doing, or Donald Trump is doing? Why are we falling back into the same old pattern of comparing the virtues of a bunch of candidates who, with the possible exception of Cornel West, will be beholden to big money? What I'm saying is that we have to change this system now. We don't have any more time. Why are we spending so much time on other issues? My
That's a
friend,
good question.
my friends, uh, the people known, okay, as the Red Berets, whose hat I wear, okay, in all my shows, are working day after day after day to boost a wonderful film I've seen, the Healing Us film, to try to move people to support the Medicare for All bills, okay, that are out there. It is wonderful work and worthwhile work, but they can't get a single payer bill through, okay, at any level because of the bought people. Why don't they realize that they have to prioritize getting the money out first before they'll be able to pass a Medicare for All bill? And what about all of the people who are trying to move heaven and earth to end the climate emergency? They have all kinds of protests going on. They're traveling here, they're traveling there. Young people, people who are old, people from all walks of life are all upset about the climate and want to take a direct action. Their theory of change is if they take the direct action, somehow the Congress is going to start doing something. I don't mean to put down the direct action or the efforts, okay, of anybody else. I'm not really trying to do that. I'm just trying to say the chances of getting through a bill to tackle your favorite issue, whatever that issue is, whether it's a foreign policy issue, whether it's student debt elimination, whether it's child tax credits, whether it's a climate emergency bill, whether it's a Medicare for All bill, your chances of getting any one of those bills passed and any of those issues actually solved would go up by 1,000% if you joined this movement for dumping the corruption, if you made that big money toxic to every candidate who takes it, if you did that first, why can't people see that? Why am I the only one, of course, with D and those who come on with me? Why are we the only ones talking about this, okay, as the primary issue? We have people talking about the importance, okay, of mutual aid. Mutual aid is very, very important. I'm all for mutual aid. I am all for various other important issues. You name a social and economic justice issue, and I'm going to be for it, and I'm supporting the efforts to get us there. But there has to be a place in all this for prioritization. We live in a democracy, or we say we live in a democracy. Actually, we don't live in a democracy, but we're supposed to live in a democracy. But it can't be a democracy with all this money sloshing around in politics. It just can't be a democracy then. Getting rid of the money has to come first, and it can come first through passing legislation or passing a constitutional amendment or passing anything. The first thing we have to do is take the power into our own hands and vote against everybody who takes the big money and make it clear to everybody who is taking the big money that we will again and again, in election after election, vote against them if they keep on taking the big money. We've got to make them understand the big money is verboten. We can't have people like Bobby Kennedy saying, you can't take a knife to a gunfight. But what about changing the system so you're not involved in a gunfight? What about running a campaign that you base on small dollar donations alone, and in the campaign you attack everyone else who is taking the big money, and you point out that they're not representing their constituents, they're representing their donors, and that we can't be sure they will do anything else unless they give up the big money. That should be very easy for people to understand. It should be very easy for someone to run a campaign based on that and to talk about it every day of that campaign and to attack every other candidate in that campaign who is taking big money. Why isn't Bobby Kennedy attacking Joe Biden for taking the big money? Well, I know why. Because he's looking for the big money himself, and he's getting it. But when he gets it, there's going to be a price to pay. We already seeing some of the price. Why did he state that ridiculous position on Israel? Why? He's smarter than that. We can watch him every day. We see how smart he is.
So he was intentionally lying.
I believe he was intentionally lying.
Because he's not somebody that hasn't been around. He's been around the block.
He's someone who's been around the block, and maybe that's been the trouble, that he's too much, been around the block, and maybe he made a deliberate sort of calculation. I've got to tie into some very big money here. If I take this position, I have a chance of being rewarded by some very, very big donors who share this particular position. And then maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to sweep Joe Biden when those primaries come. Because I'll be able to match him dollar for dollar, okay, in the ads. I think he's probably thinking something like this. When Dennis Kucinich, okay, was in the Congress himself, he wasn't a person who was my country, Israel. He wasn't that kind of congressperson. He himself had a decent respect for the Palestinians. But here he is, the campaign manager for someone talking like he was in the pocket of Rabbi Shmuley and Rabbi Shmuley's big donors. And I believe I'm right about this, that one of Rabbi Shmuley's big donors is Adelson's widow. Maybe that was a bid to get into the Adelson money. Okay. I don't know. But what Robert Kennedy did was much worse than the caving we see from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and some of the other progressives that we want to be brave and show courage, and be honorable. They're at least being quiet about it. They're at least but trying to protect themselves by saying the expected things. They're not trying to cast themselves, okay, in the role of, I'm going to be Israel's biggest defender, okay, in the United States. I got to say, okay, I don't think that was such a smart move, okay, on his part. But apart from that, I don't want to get mired down in the presidential politics and the virtues or faults of one person, okay, as opposed to another person. What I'm trying to say, the message I'm trying to give again, is that we need to open up the political system by voting against the people who are taking the big money, by outlawing the money. We have the power to outlaw the money without passing a law. That's been my message. If we all come together around this, we could prohibit the big money ourselves by defeating those who take it, making it, okay, a basic issue, making it a necessary condition for getting elected, that you don't take the big money. We can do that if we come together and we start this movement. So my message tonight is, we have to start this movement, and we have to start it now. And I'm going to bring up one more time the rule, which is somewhere here. Where is it tonight? It's here.
Okay, Doc. He says, "Here, Steve. Doc, Cynthia McKinney. You saw what they did to her. Yeah, we did see what they did to Cynthia McKinney.
I did see what they did to Cynthia McKinney, but Cynthia McKinney is not Robert Kennedy. She wasn't running with a fortune of $60 million behind her.
With a well-known name.
It's a well-known name, but it's not the Kennedy name. And she had no money with which to defend herself. She didn't have friends and friends and friends of friends. She wasn't embedded in the social fabric in the same way Robert Kennedy is. But I'm not even trying to blame Robert Kennedy for running the other way. The main point of this is to talk again about the system and how we can change it. if we vote against all those who are taking the big money, the rule again, vote against every candidate except those who won't take money from wealthy corporations, individuals, PACs, or party committees, and who repudiate all super PAC support. To look at this the other way, vote against everybody except those who are relying only on small dollar donations. That's the other way of stating this particular rule. I like the long way, though, because it calls out all the sources of big money that we are fighting against. Calls them out so you know what they are and everybody knows what they are. If we can get the movement together for people to unite around this and to bring that movement into the coming election, into the primaries first, of course. Very important. You can get rid of a lot of bad people in the primaries without having to work so hard. And then we do the same thing when it comes to the general at every level. We can change the presidency. We can change the Congress. We can get people in who are not beholden to the donors. And that system change can bring the policy changes that we would like to see. So that's what I'm saying here tonight. I've said it before. What the hell is going on here? Oh, I see. Did I fade out for a minute?
You're still here.
Oh, good. Okay, great. So, comments, D.
It's a difficult situation. And the point is needing more people, and we need more independent people who are independent media to talk about this as well. Dumping the corruption.
Yeah, we do. I've tried to recruit some people, but
Well, people are looking at their stations and what's bringing in the most people, and you have people talking about the different candidates, and
yes, I
but
know all that news is very attractive to carry, and it's very important for people to hear about it. But God damn it, if we can't get this started,
and the thing is, people could
we
include
are.
it. So
I'm going to
even
make
if you
it
talk
very
about a
personal.
candidate, you could include dump the corruption after your analogies, after everybody gets done speaking, or sometime during their broadcast, bring up about dumping the corruption and about the super PACs and having a candidate that's not bought.
They
That
have
could
to
be brought
bring,
up at
have to
some
bring
point.
up the movements, but what they also have to say, okay, I think is if we don't get this movement started, the likelihood is that we're all going to die because we won't be able to stop the donors from blocking what we need to do about the climate emergency and what we need to do with respect to foreign policy. With regard to foreign policy, we are so close to midnight now. We have been risking nuclear war for the last year and more. We can't keep on doing it. In future years, we can't let the United States keep on following a foreign policy like the one Joe Biden is following. That's an existential threat to us. The climate emergency is another existential threat. If we don't end the role of money in politics, we will succumb to one of the existential threats. The presence of big money in politics is itself an existential threat for all of us.
That's the situation we're in right now. Why we don't have the health care, why nothing is going forward. Everything is
Nothing,
stopped because the corporations are in charge.
yes.
The lobbyists are in charge.
Okay, let's look at the various comments. I think we have a number of good ones tonight. I guess we stopped with Steve Wolfbrandt's Doc. Crime is going through the roof here in Los Angeles. We are seeing it with our own eyes. Steve Wolfbrandt says, they broke into our liquor store and pizza parlor, smashed the glass doors. They stole one of our trucks yesterday. I spent half a day on that. Every day is worse. Okay, says lots of crime out there. Steve. Steve then says, we sent two M4A bills to the state Senate, tabled by Democratic leaders both times. I know. I've been watching it. But April Mano says, hi, Joe. Hi, Joe, ITS. Oh, hi, Joe. It's Andy Candy. Had to use a different account because censorship, overall, my account, over what I don't know, I couldn't track it down. Everyone, including whole Washington and Sabby Sabs. Was there censorship of Sabby too? Censorship of whole Washington also? Steve Wolfbrand says, Kay, you would not believe it. Steve says, hi, Andy. Andy says, real progressives and more should be pushing dump the corruption. Everything else, okay, is a waste of time. Okay. I'm not going to say it's a waste of time. I don't like to rain on anybody else's parade. But what I'm saying is, for God's sakes, prioritize. Give this some time. Recognize it's a necessary condition to pass all these other wonderful things that we want to pass and that would improve our nation in such great ways. And he says, hi, Steve. Sorry to read about your misfortune. Sending good vibes. Steve says, military industrial complex, big farm, and CIA have taken over the government and media. I think to a great extent that's true. Oh, I see. Andy says, Sabby Sabs, correction. Stupid AI. Steve Wolfman says, RFK should acknowledge Biden's dementia. He should do that. He should also acknowledge his mistake with respect to Israel right away. Kay says, sorry, Steve. Steve Wolfbrand says, Doc, Cynthia McKinney, you know what they did to her. Yeah, I know what they did also to Dennis. And Andy says, I've started posting your live streams on an app called Mix. But thank you very much, Andy. That's wonderful. Andy says, I wish I had money to send you, Joe, for this cause, but I'm down to buying evaporated milk for the twins and mashing up rice for baby food, which is still better than nothing. My point, no fiat. No, don't worry, Andy. Okay. I do need contributions from those who can afford it, but for those who can't afford it, don't worry about it. I'm not into people taking the last money people have to send something to me. That's just not how I roll. Steve Wolfbrand says, and Mike but Gravel. I'm not sure how Mike fits in here, but of course, okay, I loved Mike Gravel. I mean, I was there for Watergate. Okay, I was very much into it. And boy, what Mike did was fantastic. He will never be forgotten for that. Never. Okay, any more comments? So, D, how can we get this going?
Right now, I'm shaking my head because it's so difficult of a feat because of the media and for people to see us, who we are talking. I know people are tired of the corruption. They're tired of everything that's going on. They recognize it, but it's the pressure from the media, and they want you in a particular camp, and the blaming and all the other crap that goes on. Um,
Steve Wolfbrand
with
says, good night, good show tonight. And Andy says, we love you, Joe. And your message. Thank you, Andy. Okay, I
it's a
really
difficult
appreciate
message to
that.
get out. I says a difficult message to get out.
It shouldn't be so
You think it
difficult.
wouldn't be?
It's a simple idea. We've boiled it down now to the rule. So it's easy to remember. Uh,
Um, hmm. I was thinking we take that rule and we can make a TikTok video kind of thing on it. And also you could take that rule and pin it to your all your social medias and try to get
yes,
as many people to do the same thing.
yes, that's a good idea. I think the TikTok video is a good idea too.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm going to start off with pinning uh, to my social media
Yes, that's the first step. And
and
if
see.
everybody else can do the same.
Yeah, yeah, we need to start something grassroots. I mean, it has to be bottom up.
Hmm. And Steve says the amount of unrest in the country is off the chart.
Yeah, since 1969. I think Steve is saying it's the worst since 1969. Okay, is that what you were saying, Steve? Ironically, the convention will be in Chicago again.
Oh,
Yeah, that was in 1968.
mhm.
1968 convention in Chicago. Yeah.
And Andy Candy was saying that I talk to everyone I can about dump the corruption.
But people are brain teaser or people
Brainwashed, most maybe.
are brain dead. I see.
Okay.
Yeah, the autocorrect again. People are brain
Mhm.
dead.
They watch the same thing. They've heard the same programming for years. And some people just can't snap out of it.
Yeah, I know. They don't know they have the power, Bonnie says, but we're trying to tell them they have the power.
That's
We're trying
true.
to tell them it will work. All they have to do is vote against the people taking the big money. They have to find out who's taking the big money. That's actually pretty easy
Uh-huh.
since we showed in previous streams of ours that every single candidate we looked at for Congress was taking the big money.
Mm-hmm.
Every single incumbent, every single challenger, or at least every single challenger who was representing a challenge to an incumbent, it was taking the big money. The only way to stop that is for us to, we the people, to make it a crime to take the big money. And by a crime, I mean something we have to prohibit by voting against anyone who takes it. It's really a simple idea. That's why I love it so much. Jeff Denton says, who counts the damn votes? I know that's a problem, but generally speaking, if you have a big landslide for something, that gets through. Andy Candy says, autocorrect is extremely aggressive lately. I tried to correct brain dead several times, and it still posted what it wanted. Yeah, it's getting really inhuman, isn't it? That's really awful. Okay, D, should we wind it up for tonight?
I think so.
And maybe starting those little things you mentioned.
Well,
Uh,
I could take just the picture that you have here, the rule. You can just put it in our chat. And then I'll just take that by itself. I could just go ahead and do a little TikTok. I won't say anything, but I'll just keep having that go over and over and over again, several shots of it. And just as
okay,
a start. Then later on, you can, do what you want to do.
okay, I think that's a great idea. Okay, we can do that. I think I'm going to change my tweet. The pin tweet.
Yes, I'll change mine too.
I'm going to change that so that it features the rule.
Mm-hmm. And on Facebook too, have it as the pin.
Yeah, I guess I can pin something on Facebook too, so I'll do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? Yeah, maybe I'll put something like that in too. Okay, in the tweet.
And every day we're gonna have to tweet it out every day. You post it, but then just every day, just keep sending it out.
Yes, every day. Keep doing it every single day. If you do it every single day, and I do it every single day, okay, and we can get some of the others who swing with us to do it every single day. It may begin
Yeah,
to go viral. If we can get it to go viral, we can start a movement.
yeah, and I'll see what's trending too, and see if I could put the hashtags with what's trending too. If people different areas people see it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that would help. So,
Uh-huh.
uh, Andy Candy said, cut off the head of the snake, specifically money and politics, okay, and the body
Mhm.
dies. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Steve Oakbrett says, will people really stand for a Biden-Trump election. I
Ugh,
wonder. I don't know.
that's a
He
horrible
says,
thought.
will people? Yeah, I figured it was will people. He says autocorrect sucks. Yeah, it does. Okay, folks. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening.
And please hit the like button, subscribe, and share.
Right. And if you can, please buy us a cup of coffee. There's my buy me a coffee up there. And Dee's buy me a coffee is right by her name. So you can see those two. And you can also visit my Patreon account if you like.
Okay.
But as I said to Andy, uh, I only want you to do it if you can afford to do it. If you can't
Yeah.
afford to do it, don't worry about it. Just
Right.
share, like, and subscribe.
Now, Andy Candy says, "Will a college newspaper print an article for you?"
I don't know.
That's something to ponder.
Yeah, okay, I am going to ponder it. Uh, but let us initially try to get something going on Twitter, okay, in the way you've suggested,
Okay.
and do the TikTok video. And
Yes.
let's see where that leaves us. That's something fairly easy for us to do. We can get that done in just a couple of days and see if that causes a reaction.
Yeah, take that TikTok thing and put it up on my YouTube channel.
I'm sorry?
Then I could put the TikTok. I take stuff from TikTok and I put it up on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, that would be good too.
Yeah, so we start, and each time we think of something new, we'll just keep going. And if people can suggest stuff, we appreciate that too.
Okay.
Oh, here Steve said shared to some Facebook groups, and Andy Candy says, "Oh, your alma mater."
Yeah, my alma mater is Cornell. So maybe I can do something about that. Okay, I'll see. I do have a pretty high level contact at Cornell right now. I don't know if he'd be willing to take part in this at all, but he makes a lot of good comments on Twitter. Okay, a lot of good anti-Trump comments. Okay, on Twitter. Uh, he really has the right tone for those comments. Okay, it's like the tone of some people interacting in a schoolyard. I think that works for Trump. So Kay says night, Steve. Good night, everybody. Good night. Good night, Dee.
Yeah, good night. Good night, Bonnie.
Good night. And thanks.
Yes, good night. Let me see. Leave studio.